event before. I can already appreciate him due to his Mega Man sleeves and his deck choice as well. Jeskai aggro here.
Yeah, and this is a throwback to an earlier, simpler time before the Ascendancy build of this deck became very popular. There is one copy of Jeskai Ascendancy in the list, but we're looking at a Mantis Rider plus burn spell strategy. We have not seen much of this lately.
Temple of Epiphany will start things off here for Forsberg. You see Ketter take 1. He's down to 19 from that Land of War Waste to be able to cast an Elvish Mystic. Temple of Triumph will be land number 2. Forsberg, when he did win his Open, was actually playing a Jeskai strategy with Thunderbolt Hellkite and friends. So kind of playing that mid-range version of the deck way back when a couple of years ago. Ketter here with a Commune with the Gods. Top 5 cards will be a Caves of Koilos, 2 copies of Manic Influence, a Murderous Cut, and an Opulent Palace. Cards will go to the graveyard. I think that'll be it for Kent this turn. Actually, he does have an Opulent Palace to play, so we'll head back Forsberg's way. His 3rd turn of the game, see what 3rd land he has to play. It looks like he has at least a Mystic Monastery in hand. But a Flooded Strand is where he'll start, so we'll go down to 19, and we'll see what the play will be here in just a moment.
I think Mantis Rider may be a card poised for a comeback.
I'm inclined to agree with you. I played a PTQ over the holiday break. With Jeskai tokens, actually. Very powerful deck if you never got the chance to play with it before. But I put 4 Mantis Riders in the sideboard, and it took a lot of people by surprise in the sideboarding games because the card has really fallen out of favor. Before, at the beginning of the format, you know, post Pro Tour Concert Arc here, Mantis Rider was everywhere. It was a card that you had to beat.
It was the incentive to build this deck.
Yeah.
This was the payoff.
The players have moved away from it, thanks to Watanabe's performance at the World Championships. But it might be primed for a comeback here, as there's one in play attacking already. And Ketter needs to find a way to get that thing off the table because it does cause a lot of problems. Though here's a Courser. Top card is a Sidisi. There's a Manic Influence. Trigger, gain a life to 17. And now Murderous Cut will take care of Mantis Rider. Very important to get the thing off the table. If it hits you once, you know, that's okay because that's typically what it's going to do. But you don't want to take a second hit from that, especially against this kind of Jeskai aggro burn deck that's out there.
And I like Ken just main phasing it there because you do not want that Murderous Cut to get hit with Disdainful Stroke. No reason to get fancy.
So Kent down to 16 with the Courser. Top card again is a copy of Sidisi, Brood Tyrant. We'll see what Ryan's turn brings. There's a Plains. This is an Ash Cloud Phoenix and a passing of the turn. So the 4/1 flyer is here. Sidisi is the draw. Opulent Palace is on top of the deck. So we'll see if Ketter wants to put that in play just yet. He will put it into play, it looks like. So trigger there. Gain a life up to 17. Top card now is a copy of Sansep Citadel. Kent will have to take a little bit of damage to play the Sidisi, assuming that's what he wants to cast his turn. Or he could go with a Rhino, but he'll go with Sidisi.
And I think part of this is, you know, Ken's strategy here is just flip over as much of my graveyard as possible, hope to find Soul Theros, and get one big hit.
Yep.
From there, he has a lot of cushion.
Trigger, Zombie Token coming. And we'll see the top card of the deck here in just a moment. Wingmate Rock will be the draw next turn. That's not a bad one either. You can see the power level of his deck. You know, this reminds me very much of what Brad Nelson was doing when we were in Richmond and he made the top 8 of that tournament. You know, 4-color mid-range. Brad had Butcher of the Horde along with Siege Rhino instead of Sidisi, but it was all about if the mana came together, he'd be in a great spot. And right now the mana is coming together, but it really doesn't surprise you too much because that's what green decks are capable of doing.
These decks often don't even have to cap out on mana confluence because there's so many quality mana fixers and Ken only playing with 3. Alongside a variety of basic lands. So even though this 4-color deck on the surface is really stretching its mana, you don't even have to cap out on all of the cumbersome mana fixers to be able to have your mana come together efficiently.
Saw Ketter come across for 2 points of damage there. Attacked into the Ash Cloud Phoenix, but Forsberg with no interest in trading would rather have a flyer than a 2/2 morph creature. So took the 2. Life total 17 for Forsberg. Ketter at 16. We'll see what Ryan can put together. He's going to start by attacking. That's the easy part. Put Ketter down to 12. Mystic Monastery is the land for the turn.
Though the mana may come back to haunt Kent as it pertains to this Wingmate Rock. I don't know if he has a land in hand, but he is missing double white right now.
That's what Courser's for.
Yep.
Takes care of all the problems. Let's see what Ryan wants to do on this turn. Is there a follow-up that he's happy with? Looks like he may be casting a Jeskai Charm, perhaps putting something back on top of the deck. And he will. Elvish
that is an aggressive line to play, but I like it. I mean, it does mean that you know that there's no land coming from Courser, you know that there's no Wingmate Rock, and if Kent fails to play a second white source of mana, you may be even able to get more aggressive with how you're using your removal the following turn.
Now there's Soul of Theros that does get turned over. Elvish Mystic, excuse me, was the card that did get placed on top of the deck and now is in Ketter's hand. Top card here is a copy of a Windswept Heath.
I mean, that's just a great turn for Kent there, finding the second white source of mana and also putting Soul of Theros into his graveyard.
You can see the synergies with the deck immediately, right?
Yeah.
This is a really good turn, geez. Because now he gets to cast a Siege Rhino too. Yep. This is a good clean living here.
This is a sweet turn.
Sidisi's going to work, making some zombies, turn over some cards. Soul of Theros, one of them. And yes, there are 4 copies of Soul of Theros in the deck. Actual 4. And Forsberg is certainly behind on the board at this point. Ashclaw Phoenix is a very powerful card, but I don't know if it's going to be able to work him out of this one.
Seen Ashclaw Phoenix big time on the decline lately. I think a lot of that has to do with Doomwave Giant. This still seems like the type of matchup where it would be good, but Kent's just overpowering it.
Yeah, and the question is there anything that Forsberg can actually do about, one, what's on the board, but the fact that there's a Soul of Theros down there just ready to be activated?
Yeah, I mean, he's got a... this is problematic, to put it mildly.
Yeah, to say the least. See Forsberg hand, he does have a copy of Banishing Light. There's also not 1, but 2 copies of Hordeling Outburst and then a Lightning Strike too. Has the mana to cast 2 spells in 1 turn, but again, I'm not entirely sure that it's going to matter. Soul of Theros having a huge impact on this game.
Yeah, the ideal sequence here would be you Banishing Light the Siege Rhino, you make a bunch of chump blockers, you hope that Kent doesn't have land number 6, and maybe you can cheat the game out that way, but he doesn't have enough mana to cast both Banishing Light and Hordeling Outburst, and I don't think Banishing Light plus Lightning Strike or Lightning Strike plus Hordeling Outburst really gets him anywhere.
Well, there is Banishing Light to take care of the Siege Rhino. That's step 1. Lightning Strike will be step 2.
Yeah, I mean, he can shoot down the Sidisi and then be tentatively alive.
Looks like he's going to wait for now. Corsair's going to put Yavimaya Coast into play. Trigger, Ketter's going to go up to 16. Top card is a copy of Sandstorm Citadel, and Kent is just going to turn everything sideways at this point. Trigger the Sidisi, turn over a couple of cards. Another zombie is going to come in. Top card will be Satyr Wayfinder, assuming we do get to play another turn this game. You see Kent with his 5 mana at the ready. Haven't seen this style of deck really before. We have seen Sidisi decks, of course, and we've seen Siege Rhino decks, and again, we saw Nelson and Richmond put together the Siege Rhino plus Butcher the Horde deck, but I haven't seen this combination before.
I'm really intrigued by the concept of let's get away from Whip of Erebos. Stop messing around with that. Just plan on milling over Soul of Theros instead, which is going to amount to a kill in a lot of the same ways that Whip of Erebos does when it's unchecked, but doing it much more efficiently. I mean, Kent doesn't even have to cast the Soul of Theros there to get a concession. With Whip of Erebos, he would have to cast it and activate it over multiple turns. It's much slower. There he was able to just curve out and incidentally get a Soul of Theros in his graveyard, and that's good enough to get game 1.
And think about how good Soul of Theros is against the Whip decks, against Hornet Queen.
Oh yeah,
and he has 4 copies of that card.
That's a big reason that Soul of Theros has cropped up into the standard metagame is people trying to answer Hornet Queen. Soul of Theros does a very good job of doing that while also just being good against generic beatdown decks once you build up a board, which is what we saw in that game.
Ken Ketter does win game number 1 here over Ryan Forsberg. His 4-color mid-range deck is up a game here over Jeskai Aggro. As we turn our attention to the sideboard, we will start with Forsberg and find 2 copies of Elspeth, Sun's Champion, a Magma Spray, 2 copies of Anger of the Gods, Disdainful Stroke, 3 Glare of Heresy and Hostilities, and 2 copies of Race, to gate, and a Dig Through Time. I think Anger of the Gods is a great place to start.
Yeah, though, the problem here is that Kent's got this really nice spread of size of his threats. So Anger of the Gods is going to catch, you know, Sidisi and company, but not handle Siege Rhino. I still think Anger is probably worth bringing in. I think the Disdainful Strokes are very good in this matchup. The end Hostilities will likely come in. It wouldn't surprise me if Ryan brought in the Erases, assuming that Whip of Erebos or Eidolon of Blossoms, those kind of cards were in Kent's deck, and ends up really having no targets for it.
What do we see on the other side here for Ketter?
A Thoughtseize, a Suspension Field, a Banishing Light, 2 copies of Glare of Heresy, 2 Disdainful Strokes, 2 Negate, 3 Drown in Sorrow, 2 Treasure Cruise, 1 Farika, God of Affliction. Really like the counter spells, the negates. I think the Glare of Heresies are good here, and the Banishing Light. I don't think Ken's going to sideboard too much here.
I like his deck. We're going to see more of it in just a moment here. But while we do wait, we will talk about regionals. That is right around the corner. You see all the options here on February 7th.
Yep, the dates and venues have been announced, February 7th and 8th, and they're going to be held all over the country. So make sure to be checking that out. If you are not qualified for the Pro Tour, you have some large event to participate in that weekend with all sorts of prizes, Open Series points. StarCityGames.com/regionals for more information.
Also looking forward to the sweet playmat that'll be coming out as well. All the squirrels are together finally. It's a squirrel menagerie, I suppose. Free and exclusive to the first 200 players that do come to regionals February 7th and the 8th. Plant your flag at StarCityGames.com. Regional Championships, StarCityGames.com/regionals for more information.
Might be battling. I might be battling.
I will be battling. There's no might about it.
Okay.
I'm a former regional champion, and I would like to be a 2-time regional champion.
Okay. There's one down in San Diego, so I might mix it up.
I have to make the drive down to Portland, but I don't mind. I have nothing else to do. I get to play Magic like 5 times a year, so I'll take advantage.
Sure. Got to figure out what I'm doing with my scant few weekends off, but I might mix it up in that event.
You're playing Magic. I've decided for you.
Well,
There.
I don't know. My monocolored beatdown decks are so bad right now.
They are horrible.
They're so
actually.
bad.
They're horrible. We need to get a shot in the arm for mono black aggro. Not sure what it is, but it needs a little shot in the arm.
Mutavault.
Dark Confidant.
Dark
Let's
Conf-
give it a little something. Pain Seer, look, man, I'm nothing but respect. But
Pain's here is fine. It's just that part of the problem is that these 3 and 4 color decks, they're really good at blocking. And they also just incidentally all have Anger of the Gods and Drown in Sorrows in all of their sideboards. So the matchup is really tough. And they have Erases or Back to Natures, which just sort of incidentally cold mono black aggro because there's so many bestow creatures.
all right, how about a big shot in the arm? A little shot in the arm is incorrect. Gonna need a big shot in the arm.
Yeah.
Hatred. Let's bring that. Is that card too good?
It's probably not too good in a raw power level sense, but it's pretty unfun if it's in a winning deck. It leads to some pretty lame games.
It's probably true.
Yeah.
It's probably true. Again, before my time.
Oh, that was my first FNM experience back was getting Hatred out on turn 2 in Standard.
Really?
My opponent played a Carnophage.
Good card. That's 2 mana. 2 power for 1 mana. Good
Right.
card. Efficient.
So I play a Forest, a Pouncing Jaguar.
Also
super sweet.
efficient.
So my opponent pays the 1 life and then attacks. And I'm like, obviously, I'm just not blocking this thing because.
Well, you have the option to block.
Right, but I'm like, my Pouncing Jaguar is better, and his Carnophage is going to cause him to take damage over time. And I didn't know what cards existed, and then I got killed
Why do you think your Pouncing Jaguar is better than his Carnophage?
because his Carnophage deals a point of damage.
They're both 2/2s. I'd say they're similar. You have to pay an additional mana
But
for your card the next turn.
I wasn't going to do anything with that mana anyway.
Okay. If you
Anyhow,
say
I
so.
learned my lesson.
Yeah. His Carnophage was better than your Pouncing Jaguar, as you learned.
Then the next game, I was subjected to Perish,
Oh. Oh.
which is also good against Pouncing Jaguar.
Sounds like a lot of fun. A memorable experience.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
I remember the person who did it to me. I remember the cards that got played. I remember my reaction afterwards.
And you're still here.
Yeah, I don't even know how. That's how great Magic is. That you can show up from a year off, get killed on the second turn, have all of your creatures killed by a one-sided Wrath for 3 mana, and just be so excited to play next week.
I'm really hoping that when you got perished, you had an albino troll in play that you could not regenerate.
Well, Perish, I think, says you can't regenerate anyway.
I'm aware, yeah. But just welcome back to the game. I should be able to save my creature, right? You can't.
I'm sure I had a Cradle Guard in play, and an
Nice.
Albino Troll, a Pouncing Jaguar. All the Echo creatures. Not a great mechanic to build a deck around, but I did.
Cradle Guard, 3 mana, 4/4?
Trample with Echo.
Okay.
This strategy also turned out to be susceptible to hibernation. That's what I found out the following round.
Another nice card. Another really good card. And you were bragging about hibernation yesterday
Yeah, my Saga draft.
in the room, yeah, during your Saga draft. So
Yep.
you have to take it, and then you gave out the punishment too.
Yeah, it was great. It all comes back. It's a circle of life.
It really is. It really, really
You
is.
get humiliated, then you get to do the same humiliation to someone else who doesn't know what's going on somewhere down the line.
Ketter and Forsberg, game number 2, going to be underway here in just a moment. Ketter very easily winning game number 1. We'll see if Forsberg can tie things up here with his Jeskai aggro deck. Only one Jeskai Ascendancy here. A different take here for Ryan. I'll start things off with a Temple of Triumph. So a little scry action. Top card will now become the bottom one. Looks like he put a Stormbat Dragon to the bottom. Ketter will take a draw. Opulent Palace, just a passing of the turn. Forsberg will draw a card. So stoke the flames. There's a Shivan Reef and passes it back over to Ketter. See if Ketter has something to do on turn number 2. Deck has a lot of 2-mana spells in it, actually.
And Ken did bring in what it looks like he brought in the Drown in Sorrows.
Take a look at the top couple of cards here. Seder Wayfinder will be taking a land with it. The question is which one between Stanstep Citadel and Caves of Koilos. And somebody's got a little Treasure Cruise in their deck too, sure.
Yeah, 2 copies in the sideboard. I'm surprised Ken brought this in just because the matchup doesn't feel like it's going to go on for a very long time one way or the other. And you know your opponent's likely to be bringing in Disdainful Strokes. But still, the raw power of the card is very high.
Mantis Rider going to come across with 3 points of damage in the air. Ketter will draw a card. It's a forest. Opulent Palace going to come to play tapped, of course. And Glare of Heresy will take care of Mantis Rider. In for 1 we go. Now, this might be part of the reason that Mantis Rider is on a decline. A card like Glare of Heresy has certainly picked up in popularity.
Definitely. But these decks are still soft to flyers in a general sense.
Mystic Monastery passing the turn there for Forsberg. Ketter will draw. So he does have a Communion of Gods in his hand. He also has a Courser of Crucifix to play. And looks like that will be resolving. Top card is another copy of Glare of Heresy. Ketter does have a land in the caves. We knew about that one from the Seder Wayfinder. So gain a life, go up a little bit, and then come across for 1 and knock Forsberg down a little bit. 18 to 17 out of life totals here. Jeskai Charm's going to put Courser back on top of the deck. So Ryan will untap and draw. And we'll see what he can do here on his 5th turn of the game. And just pass the turn back. So Ketter, of course, will be drawing his Courser of Crucifix again.
Being in draw-to-go territory is not where Ryan wants to be in this matchup.
No, I don't think so either.
Ken's deck just has so much more power in it.
Ken, looking at Sidisi here, also has the option of Courser. He knows the top card of his deck is a Glare of Heresy. And he'll play a land, trigger this. So he'll flip over the top card of his deck in just a moment. And now there's a Commune, so this will be public information, of course. We'll see if Commune does resolve.
It seems like a pretty reasonable spot here for Brian to fire off his Stoke the Flames. Probably not getting much better than this.
He's going to go with the Jeskai Charm. Looks like he's going to put that back on top, which is a unique interaction here with the Commune. So that'll be one of the cards that Ket does have the option of choosing from. You also find a Sylvan Caryatid or 2, along with a Murderous Cut and a Glare. Courser will stay in the grip.
So Ryan keeping his head above water in terms of what's going on the board, but it still does not represent any forward progress here, which is what he really needs to do. Counters and removal spells, you know, all that stuff's fine in small doses, but Ken's deck is going to be able to overpower it, most likely.
Jeskai Charm just playing the role of Time Ebb at this point, which is not all that impressive. Disdainful Stroke's going to take care of Wingmate Rock. You mentioned that Ryan's keeping his head above water, but he needs to make some forward progress.
Yeah. And that could be something like Dig Through Time as well, or Treasure Cruise, those kind of cards would represent that. But for the time being, just not really doing a ton. And playing draw step to draw step favors Kent's much more powerful deck.
Tenfold Triumph very quickly put the top card to the bottom. Save Wayfinder is going to continue to chip away. We'll see what Ketter wants to deploy this turn. Again, does have the option between Courser and Sidisi. He will go with Sidisi. And this will resolve, trigger a couple of cards. Siege Rhino among them. So Ketter down to 17 thanks to the Caves of Koilos. Forsberg at 13. But he's in some trouble right now. Not going to cast a Stoke the Flames just yet. Shivan Reef going to come into play right off the top. And it looks like Ryan does have a copy of Elspeth that he's going to deploy. So there is the Sun's Champion. 3 soldier tokens likely to come along with it, and they will.
I'm not positive why Ryan would not Stoke there. I don't know what's to be gained by waiting.
I'm a little surprised by that as well, but even to kill Sidisi with the trigger on the stack.
Yeah.
Would clear up this board pretty well, though you do see the copy of Event Hostilities in his hand, so perhaps he's trying to set the ultimate trap right now.
Sure, okay. There is some risk here because even something like Bioblight, there are things that cause the Elspeth to just die, and then Ryan's hand's got very little going on.
Here's a Courser. Take a look at the top card, Soul of Theros. Now there's a Seder Wayfinder, so they're going to turn over some cards here. Soul of Theros among them. Oh, look at the synergies.
Yeah, I mean, Ken's operation has been really smooth here. It gives himself so many more looks at everything.
Siege Rhino on top of the deck. Power level of the deck is high, and the synergy in the deck is high.
And he does, just double checking, actually has double white as well.
Wow, he did it.
Achievement unlocked.
Soul of Theros is online.
Able to get Sidisi Brew Tyrant into play, plus generate double white for Soul of Theros.
No, I like this deck that he's playing. If the mana comes together, the power of his deck is just through the roof.
Oh, sure. Yes. No doubt about it. Though this is playing right into end hostilities, this whole sequence here.
Some attacking, some milling. Siege Rhino's going to go to the bin. Zombie token going to come in. Ryan really can't block fast enough. And as you mentioned, this does play right into end hostilities. Top card of Ketter's deck is a Commune.
Yeah, Ryan getting definitely paid off for his patience with not using Set the Flames last turn, because he's gotten a whole lot more out of Kent.
Forsberg's draw is an island. Ah, yes, this attack. One of my favorites. What's going on here? Kent is going. I guess I will block that. Yeah, there's that hostilities to clear everything up.
Yep.
So hostilities does a very, very nice job here. Kent actually does drop his hand, reveals a little bit of information. Drown and Sorrow among the cards there.
Now, I mean, that's a lot of information if Ryan's game plan revolves around Elspeth.
Yeah. Which currently it does. 3 tokens are going to come into play, and the Sun's Champion is going to try to run away with this thing. Ketter will draw a card. Again, we know it's a Commune. So he wants to lead things off here. 4 mana, it's a Sidisi. So here that is, triggered. Turn over the top 3 cards. Siege Rhino among them, so Zombie token going to come into play. The follow-up is the Commune. So more cards coming. Kent able to rebuild his board here very, very quickly.
It's possible last turn was a slight mistap there from Ryan. I think that if he tapped the island and left up the Shivan Reef, then he would have been able to stoke using the tokens and his 2 red sources in response to the Sidisi. I don't know how much he cares about the token getting into play at the end of the day, but he's likely to have to stoke the Sidisi anyway because of the Soul of Theros that are in Kent's graveyard. He can't really let Kent develop a board. So I think I would have preferred for a slightly different tap there and just take care of the Sidisi straight away.
Kent going to take the Soul. Commune is done resolving. And we're going to head back Forsberg's way. And hostility is playing a huge role in this game for Ryan. Magma Jet the draw to go along with the Glare in his hand and the Stoke the Flames. Elspeth's going to take up to 7, so threatening the ultimate the very next turn. Let's see if Ryan wants to make any move this turn with those spells that are in his hand. 2 mana here, Magma Jet there, take care of the Zombie token. Does get the Scry, set up his draw a little bit, Anger the Gods and Flood Strand are the cards he's looking at.
I think that might have been Magnus Spray.
Nope, just a Jet.
No, on the Scry. On the Scry.
Oh, sure, sure. There's a Stoke to clear that up. Now he gets to start attacking. That's exactly what he's going to do. So now we go back Ketter's way. Soul of Theros an option here for Kent, but I'm not entirely sure it's a good one. He might just have to go with Drown and start to clear everything up.
I don't think you can allow Ryan to untap with Elspeth at 7 in a board like this. Even though it's not the best from a mana efficiency standpoint, he just has to do this.
So Drown and Sorrow is going to resolve. Little Scry action here for Kent. Top card going to go to the bottom. There's a Windswept Heath. Just a passing of the turn. Elspeth's going to take up to 8. 3 more Soul tokens going to come into play. We'll head back Kent's way. Soul of Theros will be deployed here for Ketter. And we're going to see just how good of a card that is. Though Forsberg does have an answer there in Glare of Heresy. So it might not be that Soul. It might be the next one that Kent does try to win the game with, if he has enough time. It looks like Ryan's just going to tick up, make some more, pass the turn back. Not willing to cash in that Elspeth emblem just yet.
Well, last turn he could have technically cashed it in by just, I mean, Elspeth would have been at 1.
Yep.
Which I think that's the line of play I think I would have preferred in that spot, because you've seen Drown in Sorrow. Once the emblem's in play, your tokens are probably safe. And Kent's got no board, so it's not like you're in a huge rush to get the extra 3 tokens into play. That said, this works just fine, because he gets to make an emblem now and attack for lethal.
Yeah, you see the shrugging of their shoulders, says, I'm going to make an emblem and try to kill you, and that's going to work out just fine. So Ryan Forsberg is going to win game number 2 here over Kent Ketter. Jeskai aggro and 4-color mid-range are going to go to a 3rd and final game. Interesting decks on both sides of the table thus far.
It's good to see the throwback there, because we have not seen this Jeskai aggro deck in this iteration for a while now. Ryan's got a lot of interesting card selections. You know, he's got 1 Ascendancy in the deck, 1 Disdainful Stroke, 1 Dick at a time, 0 copies of Treasure Cruise. So it's a different deck, but much closer to the earlier iterations of the tempo style strategy built around Manus Rider rather than the token build, even though we still maintain some of the token elements.
And I have a feeling, given the way that game played out, I wouldn't be surprised if Kent is boarding out Drown in Sorrow right now.
Yeah, I just don't think Ryan presents a lot of targets. It's possible Kent just feels like game 1, maybe he was just an Ascendancy deck that happened to have Manus Rider in the main deck.
Yep.
But after he saw what he saw there, it's clear that Ryan's much closer to the old builds of Jeskai than he is to the updated token builds.
Or at the very least, he is playing a different deck after sideboard, a more controlling version of the deck, where Drown in Sorrow was quite poor.
Yeah, when you're the control deck and your opponents bring in and hostilities, you probably don't want to have your own smaller sweepers. So I think it makes a lot of sense for Kent to get Drown in Sorrow out of the deck. It was also just poor that game. That's another factor.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. And
yeah.
When something that happens, you know, you remember that, okay, Drown in Sorrow was bad, you board it out. Right or wrong, you're thinking, okay, it was pretty bad, so I'm going to board it out and maybe switch what I'm doing now.
Yeah, it's been a couple games now. You haven't seen Seeker of the Way. You haven't seen Goblin Rabble Master. You haven't seen Raise the Alarm.
Yep.
You know, the elements of that deck where you would want Drown in Sorrow just haven't presented themselves yet. So you can't be 100% sure Ryan doesn't have those cards, but both games have gone on long enough where I think Kent probably feels it's more likely not there than it is there.
Well, we'll see if Kent did board it out or leave it in. As game number 3 will be underway here in just a moment. While we do wait, we will talk about Star City Games game night. And while it's not a hippo, it's still pretty close.
Yep, this is the January kit that you see in front of you. Every week we send out a kit with 8 foils and 2 tokens. Get players coming in your store any night of the week for fun and friendly play, sanctioned, unsanctioned, whatever format you want to run. It is too late, obviously, to get signed up for the January kit, but if you are looking to get your store signed up for February, head over to StarCityGames.com/game night for more information.
It's a mammoth. We are wearing them on our lapels this weekend. The token. No, what is that mammoth token for? I'm not entirely sure. There are no
Call of
mammoths.
the Herd.
Yes, if you want to dial it back. Elephant Ambush.
Elephant Ambush.
Everyone's favorite elephant. Some of the best artwork in Magic on Elephant Ambush.
Yes.
So get your mammoth tokens. Head over to SCG Game Night. Just have some fun playing Magic during the week. That's all we really care about. Any day you want, too.
Exactly. Initially launched the program as Wednesday, but then we said, you know what? We just want stores to have maximum flexibility here. Don't really care what day it's happening, so long as it is.
I can't wait to see what's going to be part of February. Don't know. See, that's the fun part. See, people think we're joking. We don't know.
No,
what the next kit's gonna be.
We are kept out of the dark, into the dark on a surprising number of issues.
Yeah. Just what's going to be our lapel for the next show in Philadelphia? No clue. Don't have the slightest idea. Could be a mammoth. Could be a hippo. Could be a rhinoceros. Who knows?
The breadth and depth of our ignorance on a number of things, given that we are ultimately responsible for communicating a lot of it, is surprising.
Yes.
I don't really know why that's a thing, but it is, which means when February rolls around, we'll be duly surprised by whatever the token happens to be.
I think they just want an honest reaction from us.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what it is. And that's what we give. We give an honest reaction when we were here.
Because we just don't see it before it goes up.
That's correct. That's correct. We find out just like you.
Yeah.
I want those Mega Man sleeves. I'll talk to Ryan.
Yep.
Or just take them.
You're a big Mega Man fan, right?
The biggest.
The biggest.
I know that it's not January 4th yet. Today's the 3rd. Is today the 4th?
Today is the 3rd.
Today's the 3rd. Thank you.
Thursday was the 1st, and then Friday
sure,
and now
correct.
Saturday.
Well, Awesome Games Done Quickly. If you're familiar with that on Twitch, they speed run games for a week. They'll be doing that with Mega Man. So some of my time will be allotted there watching Caleb Hart, a fantastic streamer, among many others, playing Mega Man very quickly. So
have you ever watched where, you know, people type in chat what they want the person to do?
Yes.
And try to beat the game?
Yeah.
Yep. It's a good example of why democracy doesn't work.
Oh, sure. Sure. Political Patrick has showed up.
Left, right, left, right, left, right, and it's just the finger moving back and forth,
Yes.
not accomplishing anything.
Not going anywhere.
Just going nowhere.
Looks like Kent is going to be taking a mulligan here. Ryan going to take a look at his hand. Yeah, Awesome Games Done Quickly, something that takes place on Twitch. Of course, they host our broadcast as well, so I'm really looking forward to watching that in a day or two.
A lot of cool stuff going on that website in
Yeah,
general.
of course.
You
It's
love gaming.
awesome.
There's just a million things going on at all times.
Can you imagine if that existed when I was a kid? When you were a kid? Holy, my goodness.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, my childhood would have been a lot.
I'm not going to school today or ever. If that's okay with you, Mom. Yeah, it's a snow day. Well, it's a Twitch day.
Yeah,
That's what that is.
There just aren't enough video games that I'm into in that sense to really enjoy it. It's the problem.
I was just a big video gamer when I was a kid. It was all I did, and then Magic took over.
I mean, I played my fair share, but not that many of them are resonant parts of my childhood. Mega Man 2 definitely is. That game's the nuts.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
the list is pretty short.
If I had the option of going to play basketball or going to play NBA Jam, it wasn't close.
Oh, I definitely played basketball.
No, NBA Jam. Stockton to Malone. They're heating up. It's not even a decision. Both players have found hands that they are happy with. Well, I lied. Kent's probably not very happy with his hand since he missed the second land drop.
And his hand is fairly expensive.
He does have a Seder Wayfinder, it looks like, but he just has to pass the turn back. Is this a Mantis Rider? This can close the game out very quickly.
Yep. Pretty good against opponent with one land.
True. Kent is going to be discarding a Disdainful Stroke and passing the turn back. And now this might be a second Mantis Rider potentially. And it is. And just like that, I have a feeling Ryan Forsberg is going to win the third game here and move on to 2-0 as Kent's hand has not come together at all this game.
Yep. There is a minor risk in Ryan playing the second Mantis Rider because if Kent goes Urborg, Bile Blight, if Ryan has no leftovers, then it's an issue. But the odds of that seem low enough that, best to just cast it and try to win the game quickly, which is what Ryan did.
That's exactly what he does do. Ryan Forsberg going to win this third game over Kent Ketter. Wins the match 2-1. Jeskai Aggro will take down 4-color mid-range. Disappointing way to go out there for Ketter. But that's part of what can happen with his deck. And, he can just have mana issues. He doesn't have a ton of lands in his deck. You take a look. They're only 22.
Yeah, he's got 3 copies of Elvish Mystic, and 4 copies of Seder Wayfinder. Those are, and Sylvan Caryatid and Corsair Crewfix. So he has a lot of things that simulate it. But he doesn't have a lot of ways to make his actual land drops. And for a deck as mana hungry and color sensitive as his is, that's a slight issue. I mean, that's not really a fair representation of what happened in that game because, Kent just stalled on one land. That can happen to any deck, but he is taking some liberties with the volume of lands in his deck because he has so many other sources of mana.
And to be fair, you also know this is kind of what you sign up for when you're playing a strategy like this, and there's a world that exists where I have to keep a, sketchy 1-land or 2-land hand if things don't come together appropriately. Might just not get to play.
It's also a question, is Ken supposed to go to 5 cards there? Because his opening hand is 1 land and a Seder Wayfinder, and I know that's something, but there's already 2 copies of Waymate Rock in his hand, which are troubled, obviously. You're playing against a deck with Disdainful Stroke and